So good morning. My name is Joshua Hurt, and I am from the Rice University Human Resources Office. On behalf of all of us at Rice, President David Lebron, Rice's veterans who join us today, and the Veterans Day Planning Committee, I would like to welcome you to our 19th annual Veterans Day ceremony. We would like to acknowledge and thank the university for its commitment to hire veterans, like myself, and many of you out in the audience today. The positions held by veterans include skilled trades, managers, lecturers, postdocs, among various others. Rice currently employs over 100 veterans, and we continue our recruiting efforts to bring more veterans to our university. But before we begin our ceremony, I would like to call your attention to the small table next to the stage. This table is set as a symbol for us to recognize and remember our POWs and MIAs. The table consists of the following elements. A small table set for one, symbolizing the isolation of absent service members. Remember. A white cloth to symbolize the pure intentions of the service members who responded to the country's call to arms. Remember. A single rose in the vase symbolizing the blood that service members have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of the United States of America. Remember. The yellow ribbon represents the family and friends who keep the faith while awaiting the return of our missing service members. Remember. A slice of lemon on the bread plate that represents the bitter fate of the missing. Remember. Salt sprinkled on the bread plate that symbolizes the tears shed by the waiting families. Remember. An inverted glass to represent the fact that the missing and fallen cannot partake in our celebration today. Remember. A candle symbolizes the light of hope and the hope and lives in the heart to illuminate the missing's way home. Remember. And finally, an empty chair to represent the absence of the missing and fallen. Remember. I encourage you to please take a moment after the ceremony to stop by the table and pay your respects to our missing POWs and MIAs. It is an honor to stand before you today as a veteran of the United States Air Force. I served in the United States Air Force from 1995 until about 10 days ago. November 1st, I retired after 26 years and 4 months. Thank you. Throughout my service, I deployed numerous times to many locations in support of operations including Southern Watch, Allied Force, and Enduring Freedom. I'm very proud of my service, and it was an honor to serve with so many dedicated and selfless people. As such, I am extremely happy to be here to honor all veterans, especially including those veterans who now serve or who have served at Rice University. To begin our ceremony, I would like to ask everyone to rise in honor of the national anthem and the raising of the flag. The national anthem will be sung by Gail, a graduate student of the Schrader School of Music.
Proudly we hail
Thank you, Hade. That was beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce to you Carl Salazar, director and founder of Expedition Balance. Carl grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and enlisted in the United States Navy when he was 17 years old. Later, he began his studies at the U.S. Naval Academy, graduating in 1989 with a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering. After receiving his commission, Carl served as a surface warfare officer on 2 combat ships in the Pacific Fleet, deploying on several missions in peacetime and war, including the Persian Gulf during Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Following military service, Carl earned an MBA from the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. His journey in business then began working as a leader in a variety of roles across several industries. Like so many others, a job brought Carl to Houston in 2008, where he's made his home ever since. He is a servant leader who is passionate about serving military veterans, and in 2010, Carl launched Expedition Balance, a nonprofit organization empowering veterans with mindfulness and other tools to help them heal from the wounds of service. Carl still serves in the community as a volunteering consultant. In 2013, he was appointed as Director of Veterans Affairs for the Mayor's Office by Anise Parker and continued in this role in the Turner administration. During his time as director, Carl was a key member of the team that ended chronic homelessness for veterans in the city of Houston. He also worked to create a network to expand access to mental health care for veterans and their families, and launched a committee to help prevent suicide. Currently, Carl serves as the Director of Workforce Recovery at the Greater Houston Partnership. He was a founding board member of Combined Arms, which I used during my retirement, and is a senior fellow at the American Leadership Forum. Carl lives in the Houston Heights neighborhood with his beautiful wife, Sandra, and their combined family, which includes 4 children, Gabriella, who's here with us today, Alex, Brandon, and Jack. Please welcome Carl Salazar.
Good morning, everybody. That was a pretty amazing introduction. I'll say thanks to Josh for that. It's kind of embarrassing. I want to say it's embarrassing to sit there and listen to all that, but I wrote that, so it's kind of my fault for that. So I have had the opportunity to do a lot of cool things, and so some of those things I want to talk about with you today. But before we get into all that, and I'm probably going to steal somebody's thunder, but I know we have veterans in the audience, so will veterans raise their hands out there? There's a bunch. Thank you all for your service. I appreciate you. I also want to thank Rice for having me over here, especially Nicole is out there somewhere. I met Nicole at an Expedition Balance retreat, and I'll talk a little bit more about Expedition Balance. Good thing I named it that. It's easy to say. I met her at one of our retreats, so there's some really great stories. I'll hopefully have time to talk about a few of those this morning. But I want to thank Rice for having me over here. It's quite an honor. When she called and asked if I would speak here, the first thing I thought was, are you sure? Like, I had worked at the Veterans Office for the mayor for about 5 years. And during that time, I had set up, I guess, 5 Veterans Day celebrations, which is at City Hall, which is happening right now, by the way. You came to the right one. But it's a lot of work to set up these ceremonies. And so we're always hooking up other speakers and other people to talk. And so when she said, can you come talk? I said, it's my turn. I get to talk finally. So anyway, I appreciate it, Rice, for having me over. So I wanted to talk about a few things today in the 90 minutes that I have. I'm just kidding, Josh. 10 minutes that I have and counting, 8 probably. So I guess first what I wanted to say is, what I want to talk about is maybe not what you're used to hearing at a Veterans Day ceremony. In that, I'm not going to talk to you about my amazing acts of heroism during the Gulf War, right? That's not really what my service looked like. I was proud to serve, and just like all my shipmates, I showed up and I did my job. So it was an honor to be there, and it certainly shaped my life for the rest of my life, probably in a big way. So we're not going to talk about those kind of stories, and I'm not going to also talk about acts of heroism in general by other folks, because this is Veterans Day, and what Veterans Day means to me, it just means remembering people's service, right? It just means honoring the service of people who served, regardless of what that service looks like. Whether that service was heroic during wartime or peacetime, it doesn't matter, right? Just the fact that people served. Most of us, there hasn't been a draft since the Vietnam War, but whether you were drafted or whether you volunteered, it is an extraordinary thing to show up somewhere that you don't know, just surrender your whole life, and just kind of have faith that everything is going to turn out all right, right? It doesn't matter whether you're going into war or whether you even leave the country during your service. You show up, you get your hair cut, you put on a uniform, you do all these things, you have people just screaming in your face for a while, and that's kind of scary. And you learn a lot, and you become part of a community. And, it's an extraordinary thing to do that. So regardless of what your service looked like, what branch you served in, again, whether you served in war or during peacetime, whether you no matter what job you had, thank you for your service. Like, Veterans Day is for you. They don't make movies about the everyday kind of service that people perform on a daily basis, right? All the office work, whatever your job looks like. They don't make movies about that, right? But that's what service looks like. And so that, to me, is what Veterans Day is all about. And so I wanted to say that first. I served on 2 different ships in the Pacific, small ships. Tin cans, people call them. And so I was a tin can sailor. I was pretty happy to be a tin can sailor. And on that ship, we had people doing everything from cutting your hair to cooking your food to delivering your mail to working down in the engine room. It's to being electricians. It's kind of amazing, the different jobs that you have on a ship. And so for all those folks, Veterans Day is for them. And so I'm remembering all my shipmates today. I always wear my heart on my sleeve, so just a warning, I may have moments up here. We'll see. I wanted to tell you a couple stories. Well, first of all, I think the 2 themes that I hope to talk about today, something that I hope that you leave with, if you remember nothing else about my talk today, I wanted to talk about service, which we started talking about already, and community. So those 2 things, service and community, are 2 things that the Navy gave me, things that I still hold at the center of my life, and words that are sacred to me. So, those are the things I hope to leave you with today. So Expedition Balance. So Expedition Balance is a nonprofit I started a while back. And I want to say 10 years ago or so, and I met Nicole at some point along the way, but I met a lot of other veterans as well. And on these retreats, they're outdoor retreats, and we do things like yoga and meditate and a number of other things. It's just been an extraordinary journey in the past 10 years or so doing this work. And I've met a lot of folks and with all sorts of different, they all bring their histories with them. And I remember one time we were sitting around the campfire, and there was this woman named Kim who was an Air Force veteran. And, on the first night at our expeditions, we talk about why we're there. We give everybody our names and, talk about our service and talk about why we're there. And I remember something extraordinary and sad that she talked about. So she's an Air Force veteran. I can't remember exactly what she did in the Air Force, but I know that just because circumstances are what they are, I think we tend to think of veterans as being men. We have this idea of what a veteran looks like. And so she spent her whole life after service not really feeling like she belonged, right? So she talked about that she didn't even know if it was okay to call herself a veteran. And of course, she went into that and kind of the shame that is associated with maybe not feeling like you belong, kind of an imposter syndrome situation there. And, it's heartbreaking. And so, one thing I said right then to myself, the mission that I wanted to have for that weekend is so that by the end of the weekend, she felt like she could call herself a veteran and it wasn't about not being proud of her service. It was more about what other people were thinking about her if she said that she was a veteran. So, that was a story that stuck with me, and I think by the end of the weekend she did feel a lot more comfortable about calling herself a veteran and letting go of some of that shame. I felt some of that myself. My daughter's here. She's a first grade teacher out in Katy, and of course very proud of her. But the first kind of experience that I had sort of in that regard that was sort of like Kim's was at a ceremony, a Veterans Day ceremony at her elementary school, and she was probably in third grade or something like that. And I remember there was a stage set up. It was really quite the thing. I don't know what the budget was for this elementary school Veterans Day ceremony, but they literally had guys kind of like rappelling out of helicopters and things like that. It was crazy. It was very impressive. It was the most impressive elementary school Veterans Day ceremony you will ever see. And they, Tampa being Tampa and Special Forces Command being there and all that, they had some veterans up there on the stage that they were recognizing. And so just like I did a while ago, asking veterans to raise their hand or stand up, I remember standing in the back. I didn't say anything. I just stood there and watched. And I don't know why, and it's weird. It's a strange thing. I thought about it a little bit afterwards. It's like, of course, I was proud of my service. I talk about the Navy all the time. But I remember, this just feeling like I wasn't worthy or I had not done enough. And I think a lot of veterans sometimes, they're a little bit hesitant. They didn't think like they did enough. Their service doesn't look like other people's service. So I learned something from myself, and I learned something in talking with this woman, Kim, is that it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what your service looks like. You did enough. So for all the veterans out there today and for anybody who might be watching, you did enough. Celebrate. This day is important. The kind of everyday service, again, that we did, just the watches and the patrols in the middle of the night, going through schools, drinking like coffee, cup of terrible coffee after cup of terrible coffee, just to kind of do your job, going to schools over and over. All that counts. All of it matters because, ultimately, we showed up. And so that I think is one of the most important things that I want to leave you with. The second thing is about community. So I talked a little bit about Expedition Balance. So when I joined the Navy at 17, it started out very, this sort of epic journey through the military started out with my mom having to go with me to be sworn in and writing a permission slip for me to join the military. So that's how that started. In my mind, I see the picture of how it started and how it is now kind of thing. And here we are. But so I was pretty young when I joined, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I had joined a community, right? I didn't know the people I was going to be working with, alongside with, on ships or in schools or that kind of thing, but I joined a community. And, I don't think you realize that when you're a kid and you're joining, but you become part of a community. I want to say a family, pretty crazy, dysfunctional family, but still a family. And so you end up joining something that is very meaningful that you carry with you for the rest of your life. So I left, right? So 11 years later or so, I left and went to grad school, and I thought, like, in my mind, I'm doing all the right things for my future. I want to be a dad who's at home and doesn't get telegrams about his kids being born when I'm on the ship. I wanted to set myself up for success, so I went to grad school, and then I worked for 12 or 13 years doing things that I felt like I was supposed to be doing, but like a lot of veterans who leave service, maybe like Josh, like when you leave, you don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. You have no idea what the rest of your life looks like, and it's kind of terrifying. So I ended up going to school for a couple of years. Just honestly, the piece of paper was important, but also to buy time, because I figured I'd figure it out in 2 years. Well, it took me a long time to figure it out. And maybe 13 or 14 years afterwards, there was this hole in my heart, and I didn't know what it was. And, finally I figured out that I hadn't been serving, so I wanted to get back into service right away. I hadn't been part of a community, so I wanted to go, become part of a community. And this was soon after I moved to Houston. And at the time, there was a lot of news about veterans committing suicide. So I think at the time they were saying it was 18 a day or something like that, and then the number went to 22 and 20. It didn't matter what the number is. It's an underreported number, by the way. I just felt like I had to do something, right? So this was the second time in my life there was a call to action. So, I'd been doing a few things to help myself feel better, and I thought, I'm just going to share this with the world. And I thought, I'm going to go volunteer for an organization that does this, and it'll be awesome. And there wasn't one. And so I said, well, I guess I have to start one. And I was very reluctant to do it, but I did it, and it really has changed my whole life. I thought it was going to be about being outdoors and meditating and doing yoga, and that was going to help people with post-traumatic stress, and that was going to help be the thing that helped veterans that want to stay alive. And it ended up being a community. Just people coming from all corners, from all backgrounds, who didn't know each other, coming together for just a weekend and just becoming friends and being with each other. And it was amazing. So that was the thing. It was community after all. It had nothing to do, or maybe a little bit to do with the other stuff, but it was mostly community. And so, I had figured that out. And it has been just amazing to hear some of the stories, because you never know if you're getting traction, right? You feel like we're having a pretty good time on this weekend retreat. There's a lot of cussing going on, and it seems like people are happy because they're cussing, and so that's fun. So there's a lot of that going on, but you don't know for sure if you're getting traction, right? If you're reaching people, if you're helping. I always joke. So Nicole's actually a grant writer, and I always think about writing grants, and you always have to come up with these measurables. We did this and we did that. And I always think for Expedition Balance, the measurable is the only thing I can think of is like nobody's killed themselves. Right? Which is all I wanted to do. That was all I wanted to do. So real quick story. I think I probably have no time left, but I'll tell you a quick story or two. Anyway, one of these retreats, and I'm not going to use anybody's names. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but we've had lots of veterans come through, and one of the early veterans, I'm going to call him Mike for no good reason, I guess. He came through, and he was, man, if you ever met this guy, he could like cut through you with his eyeballs. Like he had like lasers coming out of his head. He was so intense. It was kind of scary, and he was wound super, super tight. And he's coming on a lot of retreats, and this guy, he's just like the biggest teddy bear in the world now. Like he'll hug you for like 5 minutes, and it's awkward, but he's just changed. He's just a different guy now. But it's a journey, right? Healing is not linear, right? It's not linear at all. You kind of move forward 2 steps and move back 1, and 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and it's hard. So one time, this guy, Mike, he wasn't feeling so good, and he thought, you know what, tonight's the night. And he'd been drinking, and he reached out to another veteran that he met on one of our retreats. And this veteran, of course, had his own issues as well, but he reached out and said, I'm not feeling so good tonight. I think I need I need somebody to be here. Otherwise, I'm afraid of what I might do. So that veteran showed up, stayed with him all night. I can't imagine they did anything other than just tell stupid stories and be highly inappropriate with each other, but just be with each other, right? And they stayed all night, and then in the morning, Mike was fine. The other veteran took off, and he had dropped everything he was doing, and I guess he went back to whatever he was doing before. And that veteran, he's still alive, right? So that didn't even have anything to do with me. I wasn't there. I didn't even know about it till afterwards. And when I found out, I was mortified. But it was, it felt good at the same time too. One final story, Josh, and then I'm going to relinquish the microphone. But, one time, one day I was going through my social media, I was reading something, and then a writer who used to be an actor wrote a blog about suicide. And she was talking about an actor that she had worked with previously who had committed suicide, and this actor I knew and was meaningful to me. And so her blog was just kind of hit my heart. And then, she had a website, so I said, what the heck, I'm just going to write her an email. She'll never read it. It's one of those information at kind of website things, and I said, she'll never read it. But I'll write it anyway. I'll talk about how meaningful her post was to me, and then I'll say, what the heck, if you're ever interested in serving veterans, you're invited to come over and work with us, because I know that, at the time she was doing yoga and offering meditation for people with anxiety. And so it was working for her, so she was sharing it kind of like I was doing, but not with veterans, right? So anyway, she shows up. We have a discussion, we kind of talk on email, and then we talk to each other on the phone, and she shows up at a retreat, and it was, I can't believe she did it. She's crazy. She's crazy for doing it, but she showed up, and she's been showing up ever since, being a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher and talking about writing as well. And so, on one of these retreats, she meets another veteran who makes friends with her, right? And, some years later, this actress writer, she starts posting online meditations that you can just kind of take whenever you want, right? And so this veteran that I'm talking about makes it a practice of meditating at like 2 o'clock every afternoon with one of her meditations that she put online specifically for veterans. So she did that. And he made this his practice. Well, one day, like the first veteran, Mike, this guy is in his garage, and he decides, today's the day. Like, this is it. I'm done. This is too hard, right? So he's in his garage, and I guess he's making preparations, and unlike non-veterans, veterans are really good at committing suicide, right? Because most of them have weapons, and so they're pretty effective. And so I can't believe that he would not have been successful in ending his life if not for the fact that he looked at his watch and he saw it was 2 o'clock. He's like, oh shit, it's time to meditate. And he did. He paused, and he's still alive. So community and service, two things very important in my life, very meaningful on Veterans Day. And you don't have to be a veteran to be in a community, to help nurture a community that helps other people, and you don't need to be a veteran to serve. So I just want to leave you with those two words today, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Carl. The power of showing up and the power of community. Just recently, as I joined the Rice community, they have taken care of me, and I appreciate my teammates. So powerful words that resonated with me for sure. So thank you. Next up, we're going to have a couple students from Rice, one in our grad school and one in our undergrad school, come up here and share a little bit of their story. First up, I'd like to introduce you to Reed Schroeder. Reed is a native Texan born and raised in Plano, Texas. He attended college at the University of North Texas, graduating with a history degree, and soon after attended the Navy's Officer Candidate School, where upon graduating, he earned his commission as an ensign in the U.S. Navy. Reed's first assignment was on board the U.S. Steedham, homeported in the USS Steedham, homeported in Japan, where he served as the first lieutenant and training officer, conducting various missions with partner nations in the South China Sea, as well as ballistic defense missions in the Sea of Japan. Reed then moved on to his second tour on board the USS Tornado as the operations officer and executive officer, conducting counter-narcotic missions with the U.S. Coast Guard and Customs and Border Control in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. After leaving the Navy, Reed began his MBA at Rice University and plans on working for Microsoft after graduating. Reed, please come forward.
Thank you for having me. to speak at this event. It wasn't long after I separated from active duty that I found myself at Rice. I got out in June of 2020 and began my MBA in August. And I quickly found myself gravitating towards my fellow veteran classmates. Probably because, as you know, the military has a different way of speaking than the rest of the population. But I also found that the different branches, some of those words, some of that vocab can mean different things. For example, if you take some of our Army guys here, those veterans, if you tell them to secure a building, they're going to set up a perimeter around the outside, make sure no one gets in or out. Talk to a Marine, tell them to secure a building, they're going to clear out the inside, set up their headquarters there. Talk to a Navy guy like me, tell me to secure a building, I'm just going to turn out the lights and lock the door. You tell one of our Air Force guys to secure a building, they're going to sign a 10-year lease with an option to buy. That's probably why they make the best business school students. But as much as I'd like to joke about my fellow vets and their branch of service, which trust me, I can do all day, and you can talk to me after for more jokes, I really have nothing but respect for everyone who's served and the service they provided to our country. When I transitioned out of the Navy, I heard about how strong that veteran network is in that community, and how much assistance and guidance they will provide if you ask for it. I was told this so often in my time in the Navy and when I got out, I just assumed it had to be an exaggeration. I was pleasantly surprised to find out that they were underestimating the willingness of the vet community to assist their fellow brothers and sisters in arms. Time and time again, I found myself in 30-minute coffee chats that have gone for 2 hours, and we discuss everything from our life goals to just old sea stories. And it's truly amazing that a stranger is willing to give up that much of their time just because of that common bond of military service. And it's great to have that security of knowing this strong community is here to support you. When I arrived here at Rice, I discovered that the Rice community provides a similar camaraderie and is just as eager and willing to help their fellow Rice students. Everyone from the faculty and staff to the students and alumni are supportive and eager to help one another. Whether it is a fellow student offering extra assistance teaching a simple sailor like myself accounting, to the alumni that are going out of their way to provide a connection to a complete stranger just because of that common bond of service. I truly feel blessed I'm part of both this veteran community and network and also this university. And I'm eager to give back because of all the doors and opportunities it has opened for me. But today is ultimately a day to recognize our veterans. And on this day, I think about the individuals who have sacrificed countless hours of their lives for their friends and family. Particularly, I like to think about those people that made the military a career and did the 20+ years of service. I have to admit that these are better men and women than me, because 5 years in the Navy was plenty. One of my favorite traditions I witnessed during my time in the Navy was the Old Glory flag ceremony. It was performed for one of these individuals who served 20+ years once they retire from active duty. If you're unfamiliar with the ceremony, the flag is passed amongst all the ranks that this individual has held while we recite the Old Glory poem. This is one of my favorite poems because it represents kind of the love that the country and the vets have for our country. And if you'd indulge me, I'd like you to please look at this flag as I read the poem and imagine that this flag is saying these words. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I stand guard majestically over great institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I'm confident, I'm arrogant, I'm proud. When I'm flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher, my colors a little truer. I bow to no one. I'm recognized all over the world. I'm worshipped, I'm loved, and I'm feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Argonne Forest, Anzio, Rome, the beaches of Normandy, Guam, Okinawa, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and a score of places long forgotten by all but those who were there with me. I was there. I led my soldiers, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and Marines. I followed them and watched over them. They loved me. I was on a small hill in Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired, but my Marines and sailors cheered me, and I was proud. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of countries that I have helped set free. It does not hurt. For I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of my own country, and when it is by those I've served with in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped the bonds of earth, and from my vantage point on the moon, I stand watch over the uncharted new frontiers of space. I've been a silent witness to all of America's finest hours, but my finest hour comes when I'm torn in strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the field of battle. When I fly at half-mast to honor my soldiers, my sailors, my airmen, my Coast Guardsmen, my Marines. And when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the graveside of a fallen son or daughter, I am proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave. Dear God, long may I wave. Thank you.
All right, now I would like to introduce to you Midshipman Anna Fry. Midshipman Anna Fry is in her third year in the Rice Navy ROTC program. She is at Brown College and is from Austin, Texas. She currently serves as the operations officer at the ROTC unit and hopes to commission as a submarine officer. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Schrader. Gave me chills. That was great. The first Veterans Day that truly sunk in for me was in 5th grade. My school accepted submissions of students' veteran family members and showed their chills as we waved flags and the songs for each branch were played. I was waiting for the picture of my great-grandfather who served in the Coast Guard during World War II, and I swelled with pride when his picture, more youthful than I ever knew him, appeared. My great-grandfather rarely talked about his service, but he was part of what made me want to serve my country. He and I both went through boot camp and indoctrination at Recruit Training Command in Great Lakes, Illinois. Thinking about his legacy there gave me strength in the 2 a.m. fire watch and during long drill sessions. The rest of my family still tells his stories, and we remind each other of the time he gave. We do this because we are still proud and grateful for him, even 80 years and 3 generations later. I'm sure many of you here could tell a similar story about a family or friend. Maintaining these ties of remembrance is the work of every new generation of Americans, and I'm so honored to be able to contribute to that today. Like my great-grandfather, most veterans do not boast about their service and don't feel the need to be thanked. But the magnitude of their sacrifice demands our gratitude. I've internalized the details of that sacrifice over the past few years as I've met and learned more about other service members. For all of them, there is a sacrifice of physical comfort, sleep, and predictability in life. For many, it's their time, the years of their youth, greatest career potential, or time with their family. And for some, they gave the ultimate sacrifice. It is important to remember what our veterans gave up for us, but it is even more critical to remember what they did it for. It's a question we have returned to in a real way this past year. With the withdrawal out of Afghanistan and rising great power competition, reminding ourselves that the answer to this question is far more than just a theoretical exercise. It will affect what is written in history. The answer lies in our Declaration of Independence and is engraved into every veteran's mind: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For many Americans, those words have cheapened, but for those who have served from 1775 to 2021, they have witnessed and experienced what it takes to create and protect a nation with these goals. No civilization has ever been guaranteed the freedoms and rights we now take as commonplace. There will always be people hungry for power and control, eager to take them away from those they do not deem fit. But the United States has cemented liberty for all into our Constitution and defended it in every clime and place. There has been no guarantee through any conflict in history that we could preserve this. No guarantee, that is, except the total commitment in the heart of every fighting member of our military to win. Americans can count on their freedoms because we can count on our brave men and women and the warrior spirit they have taken up. This past summer, I met about 150 undersea warriors on the USS Wyoming, a ballistic missile submarine. They weren't warriors with armor and swords, rather blue coveralls and grease pens. I was there as part of my Navy ROTC training, and I had 5 days to experience life on a sub. As much as I learned in that time about all the impossibly complicated machinery, weaponry, and advanced technology on board, I learned more from the sailors themselves. As they taught me how to fight a fire on board, they showed me the most raw definition of teamwork and trust I've ever seen. As I stood the 8-hour night watch on the bridge with them, their eyes scanning the vast, dark waters, I could feel their confidence and commitment. And when I climbed out of the hatch 5 days later, knowing that that small but powerful crew would be steadfast in their mission of defense. The images I have of Veterans Day now include each of them, hundreds of miles away below the sea. When I feel like I had an early morning, I think of the sailors who got up for the 3 a.m. watch, who are giving their talents and time day in and day out. They gave up months where they could be ashore, meeting new people, and simply allowed to let their family know where they are. Instead, they trained for months and years without knowing where they would go, just they would be to perform a vital service to our nation. The beautiful thing about Veterans Day is that we continue to appreciate these individuals for the work they do after they've transitioned out of the military. With the same conviction and integrity with which they wore the cloth of the nation, they wear the suits, scrubs, and jeans to serve their communities. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are 18.5 million veterans in America today, and veteran-owned firms employ 5.8 million people across the country. So much of our strength as a nation comes from the sacrifices of our veterans, both during and after their military service. Just as much strength comes from the families and citizens who support them and serve in their own ways. Liberty and justice for all must be continually defended in our own country, not just overseas. The work and partnership of active duty service members, veterans, and civilians is one of the surest ways to accomplish this. So may we never take our blessings as Americans for granted, and may we never take for granted those who gave so much for them. God bless you all, God bless our veterans, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, Reed, and Midshipman Fry. Let's give them one more round of applause. Thanks for being here today. All right, now we're going to move into the part of the ceremony where we recognize all our veterans from every service member. It's now my honor to ask that the members of our audience stand or raise your hands when I call your branch of service to be recognized for your service to our country. Would the past, present, and present members of the United States Army please stand and raise your hand? Yes. Would the past or present members of the United States Marine Corps please stand or raise your hand? Would the past, present members of the United States Navy please stand or raise your hand? Would the past and present members of the United States Air Force please stand or raise your hand? I'll be curious about this one. Would the past and present members of the United States Space Force please stand or raise your hand? Any? Well, we'll give them a round of applause anyways. Would the past, present, and present members of the United States Coast Guard please stand or raise your hand? All right. And would any past and present members of the United States Merchant Marines please stand or raise your hand? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are now going to move to the retiring of our colors. So, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the retiring of our colors. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. This year we're going to honor one of our Rice service members. We're going to present her with the flag. So this year we'd like to honor the service of Gail Schrader. Gail Schrader enlisted in the United States Navy Reserve in 1988 as a petty officer, second class, attached to the Naval Supply System Command in San Diego, where she completed leadership school, first in her class at Coronado Amphibious Base. She was part of the Operation Desert Shield and Operations Enduring Freedom campaigns. Immediately after 9/11, she was recalled to active duty and deployed to the U.S. Navy installation at NATO base Sigonella in Sicily, Italy. After leaving Sigonella, she deployed to the U.S. Naval Support Activity, New Orleans, and the Naval Air Station Joint Base Belle Chase, Louisiana, where she was assigned to the Naval Security Force. After discharge from active duty, she finished her service at the Naval Reserve Center in Bossier City, Louisiana. Schrader was awarded the National Defense Medal for service during the Gulf War and again after the 9/11 attacks. She received the Meritorious Service Medal with 2 stars, and much to her surprise and amusement, she also qualified as a sharpshooter. Schrader and her husband Tim married in 2002 while she was deployed and subsequently spent the first year of their marriage apart while she continued her military service. Although she loved the Navy, in 2003 Schrader made the decision not to re-enlist so she could spend more time with Tim, who fully supported her Navy career even when it interfered with their new life together. Schrader began her career at Rice in 2008 as a staff assistant in the Department of Bioengineering. She is currently the academic program administrator for the department. The part of her job she likes most is working with the students. Schrader is honored to have received the Friends of Rice Graduate Students Award in 2012 and the Centennial Star Award during the Rice Centennial Celebration. She recently earned a master's degree in management and leadership and looks forward to integrating her newfound knowledge into her work. Schrader considers serving in the U.S. Navy as the greatest honor, and what she learned as a sailor still influences her life today. One of her favorite quotes is from Admiral William McRaven, past commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command, who stated, "One person can change the world by giving people hope. So if you want to change the world, start singing when you're up to your neck in mud." So Gail, would you please join us at the front of the stage? We also have a certificate from the United States Centers on. All right. Before we conclude our Veterans Day ceremony, we'd like to take a moment of silence to honor Chandler Davidson, a man committed to service, be it to his country or the Rice University community. Thank you. In closing, we would like to welcome back Hade Gail to sing America the Beautiful.